Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people live authentic lives and step into their authentic realities via a number of different forums. This podcast is one of them. We also have a Facebook group of like-minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we'd love to have you join us. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. And on today's show, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Kira Cauley. Hi, Kira.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. She went from broke corporate dietitian to healthpreneur CEO. So she helps other health entrepreneurs thrive in their business. And today she's going to tell us all about how she did it. But before we dive into your story, I always start my show off with the same question for everyone. And that question is, drum roll, are you ready? What does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
That is such a powerful question, and it's something that I really struggled with whenever I first started my wellness business, and is what I contribute to the biggest changing point in my business now is living authentically and really realizing who that is. And I think that the biggest thing and the thing that I ask myself on a daily basis is, who am I doing this for? Like, who is this? Is this how I want to show up? Is this truly representing me? And am I taking action in a step of fear, or is this really serving a purpose and who I want to be? So pretty much to put it blatantly, what I tell myself all the time is I drop the fucks. Like that's my thing. I stopped caring what other people thought. I stopped feeling like I had to be corporate dietitian and looking presentable as I sit here with no makeup on. I would have never shown up that way before. I thought that I had to be picture perfect and everything had to be aligned. And when I released all those expectations and just showed up to serve, that was my authentic self, because that's what I've always wanted to do. I've always been that person who wants to give and care for people. I just cared too much about what other people thought. And so that's how I live authentically, is doing what gives me passion, what serves my clients, what serves my family. And if that doesn't serve some, that's okay. I send them love and let them go.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That is such a powerful answer. And I'm sitting here smiling. I feel like the universe this is one of those cosmic wink moments where the universe tells us that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Right before we got on the show, we were chatting a bit, and I told you I was doing a Facebook Live right after, in between my two podcasts today, and it is specifically on the topic of service. On how do I serve other people? So moving from that mentality of work to service. How am I serving other people? How is what I'm doing backed by love? How is it backed by humanitarianism? How is it backed by benevolence? How is it backed by a commitment to growth and a commitment to enhancing my life or other people's lives? So I love that. And that is such a powerful game changer, to step into that space of service.
It really is. It really is. Because you don't have to worry about getting burnt out when you're in that state of mind, because your passion and the drive is to serve. It's not on the results that come from it.
Right. Exactly. So how do you feel differently now that you are in that space of service, that authentic space of service? How do you feel differently now, as compared to before you stepped into this space?
I feel energized. Yes, there's days that I don't feel motivated, but when I think about that one person that I may be impacting by showing up as myself, it gives me so much energy and really empowers me. I felt so much weight on me to show up as a specific person, this persona, this character that I was putting off. And it was overwhelming and debilitating, because we're our own worst critics too. And whenever I didn't feel like I showed up perfect, I would beat myself up for it. And it would cause me not to show up. So it's just, I feel lighter. I feel empowered. I feel motivated, excited to do what I do. And it's completely different than how I felt before.
Mm-hmm. And I can sense, I didn't know you before. I don't know exactly how you felt before, but energetically, I can sense how you are completely, you embody that energy of service. And you can tell it's just a big piece of it is who you are. So congratulations on finding that space. I know that's that can be a challenging road, I know, to shed those layers, to release the fears and the doubt and the concern about external validation and fitting into societal's expectations and somebody else's image for us, etc. But it is so incredibly freeing when you finally start to peel back those layers and live from a place of authenticity. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So what I would love to do first is, I want to hear about what you do on a daily basis and how you serve people. But I think it's just so important to color that in with the background. How exactly did you get from where you were to where you are now? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Show me how you did it. How did you go from where you were? You describe yourself as, a broke corporate dietitian to where you are now, not only thriving in your own business, but helping other people thrive in their businesses, which is super powerful. So
yeah, thank you. So it's a long story, but just to kind of paraphrase it, I come from a family that has had a lot of medical conditions. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer at 35. I've struggled with eating disorders, going back to that perfectionist mentality. I've always had that mindset that I just had to be perfect and trying to fit into societal norms and all that. So it started at a young age as a teenager for me, witnessing that with my mother, myself. I found resolution and strength in nutrition, which led me to want to become a dietitian. I've always known that I wanted to help people. I thought at first that meant being a doctor, and then realized I wanted to help people holistically and pursue dietetics. I get into my career and I'm loving what I'm doing, but people are telling me how I need to be helping my clients. I'm hitting a glass ceiling in the industry of how far I can progress, how I can grow. I'm having to work 10-hour days and only getting paid salary for 8, and just working my ass off for somebody else's job. And it was exhausting. So I finally made the leap to leave my corporate job and start my own wellness business. And that was the scariest decision that I've ever made. I did not have any support from family. I come from, money was hard family, a single income family. It was a proud thing to go to college and to get into corporate industry. Like, that's how you were successful. You needed a stable job. You needed stable income to support your family. I just had my daughter. So it was really frowned upon, and people were in panic. And it came from a place of love, like they wanted the best for me, but they didn't think that was the best option. Corporate America was the best thing for me. So my wellness business did really well at first. I had a very warm market just from sharing my passion for nutrition, and I replaced my income in my first month. But school taught me absolutely nothing about being an entrepreneur and how to manage my business. I had no entrepreneurs in my family. Everybody was corporate or had never even gone to college to have any kind of background to help me with that. And so my wellness business failed. And that was a huge, huge hit to my ego, the struggle that I had with imposter syndrome and perfectionism. It just heightened everything that I'd had and the beliefs that I'd had since childhood. And it was because I thought to be successful that I had to be that corporate professional person. And I was showing up online when I would show up that way, didn't have a strategy in place, didn't have the resources through my education, the years of education, the debt, and all of that. I didn't have the resources available. And finally, I realized this is I hit rock bottom. I had to make something work. I had to support my family. And I just stopped caring. I stopped caring what everybody thought. I got out and I decided that I was going to do what I was here to do, what I was passionate about, and make a difference. I got a coach to help me with the strategy process that I was lacking and to help me with some of the mindset issues that I had. And from there, I progressed. I rebuilt my wellness business and then transitioned industries into being a business coach for health entrepreneurs, because I never want another health entrepreneur, somebody who's so passionate about changing the lives and bettering the lives of people around them and their ideal clients. I never want them to have to struggle the way that I did. We're going to change the world one person at a time and improve their health. We're going to help fight all this health epidemics. And I'm going to have a key part in that because I know that there's severe lack of resources out there. And I know how hard it is to struggle and want something so bad. but you just don't have the means or the support system behind that. You don't have the education. You're not taught how to be a business person in school. You're just taught how to prescribe a nutrition plan. So I think I've really rambled on, but that's what brought me to this point, is that I've failed, I've struggled, I've overcome that. And now my mission is to help other health entrepreneurs avoid doing that, to really take out the overwhelm and simplify success so they can get to doing what they're passionate about doing, what they're good as hell at doing, is improving the lives of other people.
I love that you're taking your experiences and helping others in their lives, which is amazing. And it's all in the spirit of, again, serving, imparting knowledge on others, which obviously serves the greater good. What were some of your fears when you first stepped into entrepreneurship? What were your, let's say, top 3 fears that you experienced?
The biggest fear I had was failure. Failure of being able to support my family financially. The fear of what people would think, the I told you so's, and the judgment that would come from, I can't believe you did that. Look at where you're at now. Like you failed. Ha ha. And that was a huge, huge fear for me. The other thing was not knowing exactly what I was supposed to do. I felt like I was searching for a needle in a haystack. I didn't know how to go about this. I just knew that I wasn't meant to work a 9 to 5. I knew that I was meant for more, and I was determined to figure out how to do it. I had no idea at first, though. And then the other fear I had was, am I really going to make a big difference? I was somebody who, I didn't struggle with weight. I had an eating disorder as a teenager, but I wasn't somebody who needed to lose 50 pounds. I wasn't somebody who struggled with eating, needing to lose 50 pounds and not being able to do it. So I felt like I couldn't relate to people in that way, even though that's who I wanted to help. Like I could relate to not loving your body, but I couldn't relate to the challenges of not being able to get the weight off, because I did it in an unhealthy way. So I kind of had a lot of imposter syndrome there. Like, who am I to help somebody lose weight when I've had an eating disorder and didn't do it the right way? So there was a lot of imposter syndrome there too.
And what do you see when you help other entrepreneurs? Do you see them embodying those same 3 fears, or are there other fears that are more prevalent?
Yeah, I think that those are pretty common fears. I think the biggest fear is failure. Nobody wants to fail. And it's taken a long time for me to get into the mindset of, failure is just an opportunity for growth. If I'm not failing at something, I'm not pushing myself outside of my comfort zone hard enough. But it's scary. We're in this mentality as a society that when you fail, that's bad. Like, you shouldn't fail. You need to stay safe. So that is a really common thing, whether it's financially or failure as failure in producing results for their clients, or failure in growing their business. And I think the fear of failure is probably the most prominent one that I see.
So let's say that I'm an entrepreneur. I want to start my own health business, and I come to you and I say, Kira, I really want to do this, but my number one fear is failure. And I'm so scared of it, I'm even thinking about not doing this. Help me overcome that. What would you say to convince someone to help them overcome that very strong, compelling fear? Convince me to do this.
So the first thing that I would ask anybody who comes to me with that is, what would you do if you didn't have that fear of failure? I would ask them, and that kind of really helps them dive deep into what that would look like for them, what that would feel like. And then I would ask, what happens when you fail? Like, what physically happens when you fail? What's the reality of that? What are your biggest fears with that? Is it the fear of your neighbor down the street that you haven't talked to in 7 years, your 7th grade best friend, who you don't even see anymore? Like, are you scared of what they're going to see in social media? Are you scared of what your spouse is going to say? Like, what are those things that make failure so scary? And then what happens if you don't take that action? And I try to get them to see that by not taking action because you're scared of failing, you're just failing ahead of time. You're in the exact same spot that you would have been if you hadn't attempted that. You've not grown, you've not progressed, you still don't have your dream business. It's the exact same result. You're just allowing yourself to do it ahead of time without taking action. But what if you actually took that action? Then you have a higher possibility of actually succeeding, because you're taking that messy, fearful action. So it allows you to stretch. And if you can believe in yourself without a doubt that you're going to do whatever the hell it takes to figure it out, because our confidence isn't found in our ability to be able to do things. If you're starting a business and you've never started a business before, you're not going to be able to find confidence in your past that you can do a business, but you can find confidence in your history of showing up and keeping commitments. So if you believe without a doubt that you're going to do whatever it takes to figure it out because you've done that before, you have a history of doing that, then you're going to be able to apply that same mindset to this. Continuing to show up for your goals and fighting for it and trying time after time after time. If X didn't help work, what about Y? What about Z? What about AA? Keep going through the list of options. There's always an option.
Mm-hmm. And when you start working with entrepreneurs, what types of support systems do you help them to put in place so that they can succeed?
One of the biggest things that I really recommend, and it's through my history with coaching and being coached, I don't feel like it's the norm. Most people, when they're starting out in a business, they don't have that financial pad to invest in big things. But I strongly believe that when you really need a support system, that one-on-one interaction and support with a coach is very beneficial. So I try to add as many touch points and accountability and support as possible into my programs. Even the lower priced affordable programs that are designed for those people who need that accountability and support, because I think it's so pertinent to have that person that you can bounce ideas off of, whether it's a Facebook community of people who are going through the same thing, whether it's email access, Voxer access, calls. The support systems really align that I implement with my programs and my clients really align with the level of support that they need at that point in time in their business. And as a new person, I feel like that's much higher than somebody who's well-versed and has had successful business and time and kind of has good practice at navigating those obstacles on their own.
Mm-hmm. And what do your programs look like? I mean, do you offer a few different programs and people choose from those, or are they customizable? How does that work?
A little of both. I have programs laid out. I have one-on-one coaching that goes from anywhere from 3 months to 6 months, depending on where they're at and what they would like, the level of support. I have a group coaching program that's designed for people who are just starting out in the business. So I give them all the strategy, the basic foundations of creating a business. Plus they also have the touch points and interaction with me in both a group setting as well as some one-on-one calls and support through Voxer. But then I have people that are, they want the 3 months, but they also maybe want a little bit more. They want a little bit of the group. Like I customize based on their need, because that's something that I didn't have. It was like, well, I've always had the experience of, I don't want one-on-one coaching, but maybe I want this part of another program, or I want this. And I feel that being flexible and within a scope of my boundaries and what I'm willing to do and able to do and do well, is fine. If I can fit something into a schedule or a program and create something to individualize it for a person that's going to allow them to be successful and change the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, however many they're working with, then that's massive. Why not?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. As you're sitting here talking, kind of what just came to me is, it's amazing what you do. You were like amazing at, managing your business, helping other people with theirs. And as a health and wellness practitioner, any person, any practitioner in that area, whether it's dietitian, personal trainer, we all understand the need for balance in our life, right? The need for balance. And as I'm sitting here listening to you talk and manage so beautifully everything that you have going on, again, with your business, your life, your clients, how do you achieve balance in your life amongst all of the, across all the various categories?
That was something that I also struggled with in my business whenever I was first building my wellness business, because I was in that, again, corporate mentality where you hustle and grind. The more you work, the more successful you were. So I really prioritized building my business, especially when it fell. I was like, well, shit, now I really have to do something. I need to work. And I would get caught up in the passive behind the scene things. And I worked long hours in the day. I worked instead of playing with my daughter. I worked instead of spending time with my husband. My marriage really suffered. I didn't balance it well. And when I rebuilt it, finding that balance, I started planning my life around my business. So I would prioritize the things that meant something to me. Like I never thought working from home 7 days a week. I mean, I don't work 7 days a week, but I have a home office.
Okay.
I never thought that if you told me in my corporate job that I had the opportunity to work from home, that I'd be waking up at 4:30 to go work out, I would have told you you're crazy. But that's what works for me. I enjoy that. I enjoy going to my workout in before my house wakes up. I enjoy being able to meditate and read before my daughter wakes up at 6:30, and then starting my day. Like I plan those things that give me joy and that make me feel whole and fill my cup up around. I'll plan my business around those things. So then I fit in content planning, calls, I block off those times, and then my business fills the space.
I love that. And I know for me too, it took me a while to get to a place where, and I guess rather than using the word balance, I like to use, I guess, the word harmony more, right? We always have to keep all parts of our life going at the same time. But for me, it was a process of self-discovery, a process of trial and error, figuring out what worked. There was a period of time too where I was in corporate America in my 20s, completely different field. But I thought that, the harder you work, it was just all about, the name of the game was working hard and grinding it out, hustling every day, and rest and relaxation was not at all a priority. I didn't understand the importance of it in any process. And it was really, I got burnt out. I got burnt out doing that. And it wasn't until I got to a certain point where I said, this just doesn't work anymore. I need to build a different model, and I need to live by a different model. And now, and like you said, you use the expression, keep your cup full or fill up your cup. And that too, and that's something I do in my own life, is I prioritize. I figure out, what do I want to do in the area of family, personal life? What are my priorities? And I've built a life where I have the flexibility, the logistical flexibility to fit in my work around that. And that is incredibly empowering. I mean, it's incredibly empowering that I can construct my days to look any way I want them to look.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the biggest reasons that we go into being our own boss anyways, is because of the freedom that our business can provide. And if we're not allowing that for ourselves, then we get that sense of failure again, because we want these goals, but then we're denying ourselves of that, and it can cause us to get burnt out, just like you said.
Right. I'd love to dive in a little bit more about into just diet, talking about what you did as a dietitian, and because I think I'm very intrigued by this whole system we've built in this country. And this is not at all a political show. I'm not a political person. The way I see the systems being interrelated, systems being healthcare system, pharmaceuticals, weight loss, food industry, there's this codependency or this interconnectedness, interdependency. There's this self-feeding type nature to these systems.
Yes.
And I think that the answers to the vast majority, it's my belief that the answers to the vast majority of our health and wellness issues are found in our food, are found in the grocery store, in the produce section of the grocery store. And I don't feel like we've built a system in this country that imparts that knowledge on people. I don't think that we teach people how to be healthy. I think it's a reactive system. And I feel like I was a late bloomer in this area. It wasn't until I was in my mid to late 30s that I sort of, I guess, stumbled upon some people who were really passionate about healthy eating and working out and eating plant-based. And I never realized how powerful food is in helping us create our reality. From an energy perspective, I remember when I was in my 20s, 4 o'clock, I would have that crash every day. I would either head to Starbucks to grab a coffee or the vending machine to grab a Snickers bar. I was always tired. I was getting sick frequently, nothing serious or chronic, but just colds and viruses, and always run down and just feeling drained mentally, physically, emotionally. And I didn't understand that it was totally correlated to what I was putting in my body. So can you give us sort of I know this is a really broad topic, but just maybe a food nutrition 101 class. What would you say to someone who came to you and said, I know I don't eat healthy at all. What are some shifts that I can make in my life in the short term that will help me feel better?
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate what you were saying, I couldn't agree with that more. I think that there's a lot of things that go into the food industry and the recommendations that we receive from a federal level that don't necessarily have the consumer's best interest in mind, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to get out of corporate America. As a dietitian with your national credentials, you are told that this is the way that you need to be helping people. You don't have a lot of freedom to help in the way that you feel is truly the best way. So I believe that some of the simplest steps to implement a healthy lifestyle is, when you're in the grocery store, you can stick to the outer perimeter of the store. The more that you can buy whole food, clean produce. It doesn't necessarily have to be organic. That would be ideal, but that's not always feasible for everybody financially. And maybe they don't have the availability of it depending on how rural their area is. But if you can stick to the produce sections, your fruits and vegetables, even if it's canned or frozen, get the low sodium canned options. Look at your ingredients on the frozen items. Frozen really retains a lot of nutrients. So those are more economically friendly choices that you can have to increase your produce consumption. If you're able to, if you choose to consume meat, it definitely can have a healthy diet with not a vegetarian or vegan diet if done correctly. I do recommend trying to at least have one meatless day a week to increase your produce and to reduce the trans fat and saturated fats that we can consume in some of our food products. But always try to go for the leaner options. If you're able to get your meat locally from a good source, that's great. In a perfect world, your meat, if you can find grass finished, which means that they've been fed grass their entire life, as opposed to meat labels that say grass fed, which means that they may have only eaten grass once in their entire life. So there's a little bit, the food industry gets tricky on those food labels. But if you can find good quality meat and make sure that you get leaner cut options, those are great as well. Obviously trying to avoid the fried, but the big thing is to really find a plan that works best for you. There's tons of fad diets out there, but if your goal is to lose weight, you have to be willing to do whatever you do to lose weight for the rest of your life, or you're going to gain that weight back. It's not going to be sustainable. It needs to be a true lifestyle change. So the things that are, 21-day fixes or 30-day programs, those, if you don't implement true sustainable changes, it's not going to last for you. And that's where I see a lot of the issues in our dieting industry. The women that I would help, I dealt with emotional eating in my wellness business. The women that I would help, they were what I called chronic diet daters. They would try one diet after another, and it messed with the hormones and their metabolism and caused so much damage, when the reality is they just weren't able to manage their emotions. We would go to food for that emotional outlet and not be able to, it wouldn't matter how healthy their diet was or what diet they were doing, because they didn't know how to manage their mindset and use food to escape that reality. So there's so much more that goes into weight loss than just food. You have your stress, your sleep, your hormones, your physical activity, your genetic makeup. Weight loss is multifactorial, but the food industry, our weight loss industry, wants to just say eat less, exercise more, and that's not always the answer. A lot of the women I dealt with, they were eating too little. I started making them eat more and they lost weight. So it's just very, very challenging. There's a lot of miscommunication out there, a lot of trying to do one size fits all, and that's not how it works.
Right. I think it's like you mentioned, it's just a multifaceted endeavor, this whole weight loss. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And I too, there was one point in my development where I thought it was just simply calories in versus calories out. And I was trying to lose the weight after having my fourth child, and I was running more and eating less and gaining weight in the process. And I didn't understand why. I thought it was just a simple mathematical equation. So it was really eye-opening to learn that there were so many other things that went into it. And I started working with a trainer, and he actually had me start to track my food and had me eat more and had me eat fats, healthy fats. I used to avoid fats like the plague. Right. And I started working things like nuts and seeds and avocados and oils, certain healthy oils. And the weight just started to come off actually as I increased my fat. So it took some Definitely, it took some mindset rewiring. It definitely took a shift in my mind because I used to avoid fat because I thought that that was contributing to making me
Yep.
fat.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
had to, I use the term unbrainwashing my clients a lot because the diet industry just had them so fearful of eating more or eating these things that were deemed wrong. When, if you look at the history and the statistics of like the low fat diet, when all that stuff started coming out in the 70s, you can see fat intake decrease and obesity and diabetes epidemic begin to exponentially increase on the same, like they had an inverse relationship together.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think the key too is adopting that long-term mentality, right? Making that lifestyle change. I mean, I know that was a game changer for me. And it's all about coming up with a plan that's sustainable over time. So rather than letting your fitness efforts be season-based or event-based, or I want to lose 10 pounds before my daughter's wedding or 5 pounds before a vacation, to adopt that long-term mentality. So and I know it can be really challenging sometimes. I think people have sort of a black and white mentality. I'm either dieting or I'm not. Mm-hmm. And, I'm dieting and I had a piece of cheesecake, so therefore, I'm going to just throw in the towel for the rest of the day and just eat whatever. Yeah. And this is all cumulative. So how do you coach people around building in those, I don't like to use the word cheat meal, but, mindful indulgences, how do you help them build in those treat meals, so to speak, and be okay with it and not feel like they've fallen off the wagon and need to throw in the towel or have failed and need to start over? How do you help them accept that that's part of a normal, healthy plan?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's something that, especially where I dealt with women who struggle with emotional eating, one of the first things that we would address before I ever started talking nutrition with them is their mindset. We would look at perfectionism. Why do you feel like you have to be perfect all the time with your diet? Why do you feel like one bad meal, one bad weekend, one bad week is going to derail you? Because ultimately your success that's not going to define your ability to be able to succeed. Your success is determined by your willingness to get back on the bandwagon after you do have a mishap or a failed diet, a failed day, as many would call it, a cheat meal, an unexpected cheat meal. Because moderation is key. Like if you're depriving yourself of the things that bring you joy, whether it's a cupcake or a chocolate chip cookie here and there, or, a Starbucks mocha, whatever it might be, if you're depriving yourself of that, we're not designed to deal with deprivation. Your brain will retaliate and it becomes very hard to sustain. So we address the mindset behind perfectionism. Why do you think that you have to be perfect to be successful? Where can you find evidence that you can still show up and be consistent afterwards? Recognize that you've seen where you can do improvements. How can you plan ahead for the next time to reduce that? But then the other thing is to focus on, lost my train of thought. Really making sure that they're just able to see that they don't have to be perfect. It took them time to get there. It took the body time to get there, and being able to just continue to progress and not just be happy. Here's what I was going to say. I'm sorry. Emotional eaters. Why are you wanting to eat that? Helping them assess, are you truly physically hungry, or is this an emotional trigger? Or is there something you're wanting to escape from? Are you having a bad day at work? Are you anxious? Did you and your spouse get into an argument? Are your children being little heathens? Or, what might be causing you to want to escape from the reality you're in? Or are you physically hungry? If you're physically hungry, then listen to your body, definitely eat. But if there's an emotional trigger, how else can you manage this? So recognizing whether it's an emotional trigger or true physical hunger, which most of us have lost our ability to be able to even sense true physical hunger. Our stomach and the way that our body works, we don't generally generate. Our body takes about 12 hours to process our nutrition. So if we have anything less than 12 hours between our meals, what we're sensing is generally not a true physical hunger. It's a more habitual caloric intake, nutrition intake, or an emotional trigger that's coming up within those 12 hours. So addressing that and then helping them around the mindset of, okay, well, you've had an extra cupcake. That doesn't mean you're not going to fail. It doesn't mean you can't still continue to be successful. How can you prevent it, like work on preventing this from happening in the future if you choose to? And where can you see the opportunity for growth in this?
Okay, I love that. It's just about, like you said, mindset, rewiring. And I'm curious because I know that there are a lot of areas that it's very easy to get caught up on when you're trying to lose weight and trying to adopt healthy eating. I know the scale is one of them. I've gotten totally hung up on the scale in the past. I remember I literally at one point got rid of my bathroom scale. I had to. I was weighing myself. Like I'd go for a run and then I'd weigh myself that night. I'm expecting to see the scale go down and it went up, and it was just really just not a good practice, not a good habit for me. And it was almost getting to the point where I was just weighing myself too often. So, and I had to think about it too in terms of calories. Like if I went, if the scale showed 2 pounds higher than it did the prior day, it didn't necessarily mean that it was fat. It didn't necessarily mean that I gained weight. I needed water, and I needed to take a closer look at my body composition. So what do you have to say in the way of cautioning people to not get too hung up on metrics, whether it's what the bathroom scale says or any other metrics that people might get hung up on along the way?
Yeah, the one thing that I really focused on with my wellness clients and even with my business clients now is that your metrics and the way that you're judging yourself do not define your worth. Like your worth is not defined by the number on the scale. It's not defined by the number in your bank account, the number of clients that you have, your followers on social media. That doesn't determine your worth. And for those who struggled with this scale, the thing that I would really help them focus on is, how do you feel when you're not on the scale? When you go about your day and you're eating better, you're making better choices, you're probably feeling energized, you're feeling more empowered, you're feeling more confident, your clothes may be fitting differently. When you get on the scale and you see that number, it doesn't change any of that. It doesn't change that emotion. You're just now basing your worth and your success on that number when you could still choose to feel that way. Like you feel a certain way when you're not on the scale, but then getting on that scale, it makes you feel another way because of the thought that you have about that number. When you can have that same reality and that same experience, those same emotions, despite the number on the scale, if you don't weigh yourself, it doesn't change your weight. You're just not thinking about the number in a value sense. So we really work on recognizing the number as only a number, as a guide to see if we're progressing in certain aspects. But we also look at other non-scale victories. How are your clothes fitting? How are you feeling? How are you sleeping? What are your food choices like? What are your lab metrics like? And those are some numbers that are important. And the same thing with business. We look at how much value you're providing. How do you feel in your business? How are you spending time in your life and taking care of yourself? Not just based on the number in your bank account, not just based on the followers, and all that comes secondary to taking care of yourself and focusing on the value and the your inner value, your inner worth.
Right. And how do you, since speaking of value and assessing that, and how do you help entrepreneurs that you work with assess value? Because again, that's a place where it's easy to get hung up on the financials of the business, get hung up on the numbers, but how do you help them re-anchor on what their focus should be on, which is, their self-worth, how they feel, the value that they're adding? What are some tools that you use, or what do some conversations sound like around that?
Oh, that is such a good question. One of the things that I really work on with my clients is I'll have them write down, we practice gratitude. I strongly encourage them to practice gratitude on a daily basis. And one of the first exercises that I do for them is I have them make a list of 10 to 20 things that they really want in life. And most often, those are going to be things that they don't have. So I point that out and I get them to recognize how your mind will immediately go to a place of lack and negativity and things like that. And then I have them redo that list with every other one of them being something they already have. So I really want a home of my own. I really want a business of my own. I really want a healthy child. I really want to be married. Like, what are some things that you've really wanted? What are the things that you wanted 5 years ago that you have now? Like putting that into perspective to help practice that gratitude so they can see all that they have and the value that they currently have in their life. We just happen to get kind of stuck in that comparison of, okay, well, this entrepreneur is really successful. I want her life. Like I only have this. I only have this much money. I want this. We continue to, and that's great. Like that gives you insight into where your dreams are and how you want to grow and what your next step is, but you can still grow and want more and be grateful for what you have and content with where you're at. So really practicing that gratefulness and the gratitude in your life. But then also having them list out, one of the other exercises we'll do is list out the things that really make you happy. Like if you didn't have to worry about money, if you didn't have to worry about time, if you didn't have any of those what ifs or how am I going to do this, what are 5 things that you would love to do in your life? Do you enjoy traveling? Would you want to sleep in? Would waking up at 4:30 to work out and meditate be a priority of yours? What are some things that you really want that fill you up? And then how can you make that fit into your life to make sure that you're giving value to yourself and you're focusing on that? If you're able to accomplish those things, not even if, when we get those accomplished and set those as a priority, your energy is going to be at a higher level. Your vibe's going to be at a higher level that you're going to be able to give out more to the people that you're.
Right, exactly. And I wanted to echo the part that you said about gratitude. That is so incredibly powerful. And and it almost seems, counterintuitive sometimes, but we need to get into a space where we give gratitude even for the things that we don't have yet. Yes. We're so accustomed to receiving something and then expressing gratitude for it, but getting into that space, because the more we're in that space of gratitude, we have the thoughts that have the vibrations associated with them, and that's what is echoed back to us in the universe. So it's so important to get
Absolutely.
in there. And I wanted to echo the part too about not coming from a place of lacking and wanting and needing, because that just serves to energetically increase the gap between where we are and where we want to be. There's
Exactly.
resistance there. It's an ego-based concept. So it's all about just getting into that space of gratitude, which puts us in a space of peace and ease, and everything just flows so much easier. And so then instead of chasing and chasing things down that we want, we get into a space where we're allowing and accepting and allowing the universe to present us the things that are supposed to be in our reality. And it is so powerful, and it's such a game changer. And I did experience that shift on my journey, and I'm so passionate about imparting that knowledge and wisdom and experience on other people, because it really truly is something that can change your life in a very powerful way.
It really can. I mean, it seems like such a simple thing to write down things that you want or things that you're grateful for, or to be grateful for things you don't yet have or do not have at all. It seems like such a simple concept, but when you apply it and you practice it daily, the smallest, simplest things really are the most massive things that can create huge transformation in your life. Like, I mean, sometimes I have some resistance from people that are like, why is that important? Why is journaling significant? What's the importance of that? What's the importance of meditating and doing these things? But that's just a container for the mindset opportunity that you have and the growth that you have there. That's just a way of getting that growth.
Right. And like you said, it's the little things, right? It's the simple things, the little things that are compounded every single day. And in fact, I saw something the other day, and it was something to the effect of, it was a mathematical type image, but it said 1.0 to the 365th power is still 1, right? 1 to the 300, but 1.01 to the 365th power is, and I can't remember what the number was, but it was just really eye-opening to see that if you just do those little things every single day for 1 year, you'll be so much further ahead than you otherwise would have been. So like
exactly
the simple things, it's the little daily habits that we incorporate into our life that make the huge difference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I actually, I have a calendar that I kind of write my daily goals or my monthly goals on, and then action steps that I can take in each day. And I put a Postit note on each day of the action that I took that day. So I'm taking at least one action every day to get me towards my goal. It could be something as small as podcast interview or creating a newsletter or talking to one new person. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, I'm taking one action every day to progress towards my goal. A year of doing that, when I reflect back on 2020, that's going to be a massive transformation for me.
Right. Absolutely. And I know you mentioned Postit notes. Are there other ways that you coach clients to stay on track with their goals?
One of the biggest things that I help my clients do is to really kind of plan out. Well, I'll walk them through creating a business plan. We'll look at annual, break it down into quarters, break that down into monthly, and then we'll break it down into as small as what daily actions could you be taking. And then my one-on-one clients, we have those check-ins, we have that support and seeing where you're at with that. And because that can change. Some people, especially starting out, we kind of do a general annual goal, but we focus more on the first quarter than the second quarter. Like we refine that a little bit because they're going to grow as their business grows. They may change their goal as they begin to progress. Mm-hmm. So I think that planning it and really writing your goals out, what you would like, and creating tangible action steps to get you there is very, very important in being able to not only attain your goals, but then to have that accountability. So you go each day into knowing what you're going to be doing rather than like, well, what should I do today? Like you have that plan and the process implemented, and you can adapt as needed. I truly think that planning is the best thing that you can do.
I wholeheartedly agree. And Sunday nights are one of my favorite days. I mean, I love every day of the week brings something, something different, but Sunday nights have always been my favorite because I dedicate it to planning. I dedicate a couple hours to planning for the week, and I write out and I enumerate, all the things I want to do and list out my priorities and figure out when I want to schedule things in. And it's amazing how much you can pack into your week, including, and I say pack, I'm not running the schedule where I'm back to back all week. I also plan things, like massages, self-care, things like that. And it's amazing what you can fill, how you can fill your week up when you just plan it, when you plan it in advance.
Absolutely. And it allows you to be so much more productive, because if you know, like if you have specific things that you want to accomplish in the day, you have that little to-do list. Right. I am the kind of person that I enjoy knocking my to-do list out first thing. So in the hours that I work, about 3 to 4 hours a day, maybe 3 to 5 days a week on my business, depending on what I have going on. And my priority is to knock that to-do list out firsthand. So if I don't want to work those 3 hours in the day, I don't have to. I get the bare necessities done. And if I feel like going out for a run or want to take a nap or do something different, then I can. And it's just so relieving to not have that, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this post on this launch, or I didn't respond to this person or create this content. Like it's just such a relief for me. And I know that not everybody functions with a to-do list. They are kind of more of a free flowing, and that's perfectly fine. Whatever works best for you, as long as you have a system that works best and allows you to reach your goals.
Right. That's a great point. It is very highly individualized. And I think that's so important, is for people to realize that we don't need to follow a cookie cutter way of operating, right? We can figure out what works for us. And for some people, they like to have the structure. For other people, they like to be more free flowing. So I think that's super important. So we are actually almost out of time. I'm bummed because I feel like I could sit here and chat with you all day. You're just so incredibly knowledgeable about so many things, health and wellness, how to manage your business, how to help other people manage theirs. But before we close up, I wanted to just give you the opportunity to say any closing words with regard to anything, specifically towards entrepreneurs, specifically towards people in the health and wellness industry, anybody who you'd like to just share a little bit more of your knowledge and wisdom with.
I think if I could just say one thing to any entrepreneur out here who has a dream, whether you're pursuing it or you're just starting out, like just don't give up on yourself. Come back to your why. Come back to the reason why you want to do this, who you want to help, and think about that one person that you may be impacting each day by showing up. There's always going to be somebody that you're touching, even if they don't comment and engage in your social media posts or you don't see it right away. There's always somebody you're impacting. So show up for that one person and show up for yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that you were on my show today. You've been an amazing guest, and I so appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom. If people would like to get in contact with you directly, what is the best way for them to do that?
They can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook at Kira, Kira .health, biz, B-I-Z, coach.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to all of our viewers and listeners, I would like to thank you all for being here. Time is a choice, and I'm super grateful that you chiseled out an hour of your day to listen to our podcast and to listen to all of the knowledge that Kira had to share with us today. Again, I'd love to invite you to join our like-minded community of people committed to spiritual growth and transformation. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB on Facebook. So thank you very much, and I hope you all have a great day.